What's up, guys, and welcome back to Eventual Acres. So, I don't know about you guys, but here in Rhode Island, our falls tend to kind of look a little more like winter at times. I've been paying attention to the weather, and it looks like we might possibly be getting some snow on Tuesday. Now, it's kind of been back and forth, so I don't really know if we will, but it does look like we'll at least be getting a hard frost. We're going to be getting into the high 20s, and later next week or early next week, we might even be hitting lower 20s. So, there's some things I need to get done today. We've got plenty of leaves falling because obviously it's fall. So I'm going to use that, just kind of add to some more bedding to the raised bed because I didn't get to really add as much bedding as I wanted to. I didn't really have a whole lot of straw and we didn't really have a whole lot of leaves at the time that I planted the garlic. So if we are getting a hard frost, I do want to add a little bit more to this raised bed just to protect the garlic. As you can see here, my garlic is starting to pop up, which I am super happy about, but you can still see that there's some straw here and some grass clippings that I threw in. But right below the surface, you can see the dirt, and there's obviously not a whole lot of leaves in here. So I want to go and I'm going to rake up a whole bunch just to fill up this raised bed. And then with this raised bed, I don't know if you can see or not, but there's a lot of weeds in here. We've been getting a lot of rain lately, and I've been super lazy with pulling weeds out. It's not really my favorite thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull out all the weeds here, and then I'm also going to go ahead and put a nice thick layer of leaves on here as well. Just because even though spinach and lettuce are cold hardy crops, having some bedding in here will be beneficial to them in the long run because spinach does great in the cold, but if you have snow sitting on it and then the snow is thawing out and you're getting kind of like that hot and that cold, it doesn't really do super well for the crops. Just because it does well in the winter doesn't mean it's going to do well in the snow. So that's going to lead me to my next project that I want to do today as well. Again, following that theme of laziness, these buckets right here aren't actually growing anything. These are what I attempted to grow green beans, zucchini, and squash in and wasn't super successful. So I've just got grass and other weeds growing in these, but the dirt in it is still pretty good. If I pull back the straw and the leaves that are in there, that dirt is still dark black. It is good compost. I don't really know what the issue was this summer with growing stuff out of it, but I do want to save that dirt for next year. So I'm just going to dump all of the dirt out of this, put it into a tote, hold on to it for next year. But I want to take these buckets once they're empty, and after this is covered in leaves, when it starts to snow or get too cold, I want to put a bucket over each piece of lettuce and each spinach plant, just as like an extra protective barrier from that cold. I know some YouTubers that I follow will put like a window pane or some type of clear plastic over it to kind of act as like a greenhouse. I don't have that. So mine's mainly just going to be more of like a protection from the snow rather than acting as a greenhouse. So this is my big old pile of leaves from everything that I've gathered so far, and this should be more than enough at least for the raised garden bed. I don't know if I've mentioned it yet, but in one of my previous reels, I had noticed that a chipmunk had climbed into my raised bed and they dug a hole like right about here. And mind you, I filled this whole bed with garlic and only that side has anything growing. So I think the chipmunk that made its way in here probably ate at least this half of the bed's garlic because I only see one, two, three, four, about 5 or 6 plants growing, and they're all on that half. So I'm still going to go ahead and fill this whole raised bed with leaves just because if there is something in here growing, I still want to have that opportunity too, and I don't want the cold to kill it off. But I do believe that the chipmunk that made its way in here did eat at least this half of the garlic. I scared it off and I filled that hole back up. So fortunately, he wasn't able to get to that side. So I'm going to go ahead, fill this raised bed with leaves, and I'm going to dump these buckets out. Got some worms and some grubs growing in there, so whatever is at the bottom of this bucket, they're definitely decomposing a little bit further, so it's a good sign that there's some nutrients still in there. Just want to take a moment real quick to just look at this soil. So I just filled up 2 totes using the 4 buckets that I had over here. And this soil is really nice and dark. It looks really rich. If you can see, I've got a whole bunch of worms and grubs that were growing in, not growing, but that I found in here. And honestly, the soil looks a lot better than it did when I used it earlier this summer. Half of this was from my buddy's farm, where I took the soil from his backyard where he dumps all of his alpaca poop. And some of this was just fertilizer from the store. And honestly, the soil looks a lot richer now. And I think having the worms and the grubs in there, breaking everything down, is actually going to make the soil a lot better for next year. So I'm actually really excited about that. So I don't know, maybe I'll have better luck using it. Now, this might look like a lot of leaves in the raised bed, seeing that it goes all the way to the top, but honestly, it's not a lot because leaves, when it rains, it's going to compact. And ideally, you want 4 to 6 inches of some type of insulation, whether it's straw or leaves, on your garlic. So even though the saplings are covered, it's not going to hurt them. It's really just going to benefit them, especially once we start to get that snow and that hard frost in here. So I'm going to go ahead now. I'm going to pull the weeds out of here and do the same thing. But with the lettuce and the spinach, I don't really want to cover that with leaves. I just want to cover mainly the soil because the lettuce and the spinach still need the sunlight in order to grow. And the leaves is just an insulator for mainly the soil so it doesn't freeze too much and kill off the spinach and the lettuce once we start getting snow. I haven't really talked about my peas too much, and that's mainly because I don't really know what's going on with them. Because after the chipmunk or whatever ate them the first go around and I replanted them, it is growing. It looks healthy, but with the frost that's coming and the snow, I don't really know what's going to happen. So with the leaves, I'm really hoping that it is going to act as some type of barrier from that snow. But I think once we get snow, and not just the snowflakes, but once we actually start getting snow, it's probably just going to kill the pea plant. But I am happy to see that they are growing. So maybe I'll get a couple peas from it, but I don't really think that's too likely just because I planted them so late into the year, especially after the first mishap. So I don't know. The lettuce and the spinach have been doing great. I've harvested quite a bit of lettuce and spinach now. I've been putting it mainly on my sandwiches or on my burgers. Um, so if I can get the spinach and the lettuce to last throughout a good chunk of the winter, I'd be happy. But we'll see. I'm pretty confident that the leaves will at least protect the spinach because the spinach is a little more cold hardy than the lettuce. But once I start putting the buckets over them when it gets too cold, I think that'll help out as well. So we'll see what happens. Also, the variety of lettuce and spinach that I chose to put in here, I don't remember what they're called, but they're also supposed to be a little extra hardy for the snow. So that should help out a little bit. But I think ideally with the buckets, should protect it. Now I'm not going to go super crazy with weeding because, A, it's mainly like grass just from like the dirt that I threw in here. But once the leaves are in here and compacting it down, kind of should kill some of the weeds that are in here, at least the small stuff. So I'm mainly focused on getting the big things in here. Like I don't really feel the need to go super crazy with the weeding because even then, once it starts getting cold, that'll probably kill off the grass as well. The grass here is already starting to turn a little bit brown, so this should start turning brown too. But I think once the leaves are in here, and again, we've got a couple more days of rain, they'll compact it and just kill the rest of it off. Hence the same reason I don't really want to put too many leaves on top of the spinach and lettuce because I'm not trying to kill this either. I want it to continue to grow, but that should be good for weeding. Again, I don't really feel the need to go too crazy. All right, so my raised bed is filled with leaves. This looks pretty insulated with leaves. And I've still got all of these leaves left. I've kind of made a mess of my yard, but that's okay. I'm kind of tempted to throw some in here. Carrots are also pretty cold hardy. Might as well since I've got so many extra leaves. But actually, one thing I do want to talk about real quick. So if you've been following along, then you'll know that when I planted these carrots, I actually kind of did like a little test experiment here. And with this raised bed right here, I kind of planted everything in like an outer circle, a middle circle, and a little circle. And then as it started to grow, I thinned it to, the right spacing because, I plant 2 seeds in each hole at a time just to give it a better chance of growing. But this is looking really great, looking very full of carrots. I'm really excited to harvest them when they're ready. And then with this barrel over here, I kind of planted everything in just like rows and I just like scattered it along. And then once they started to grow, I thinned them. And I don't know if you can tell, but this one is not looking as full as this one right here. Not only are the plants looking bushier and thicker and healthier, but there's definitely more carrots growing in here versus this one. And I got like little small ones that are growing, some larger ones, but it's not really looking as full as that other barrel over there. So I don't know. Maybe I learned something from this experiment that planting them in circles might potentially be better, or maybe this barrel is getting more sunlight than this one. So it very well could just be the sunlight. I don't know. So maybe next year I could try this again with the 2 barrels, but plant this one that had not as good results in a circle and the one that had pretty good results in the lines. I don't know. Either way, carrots are growing. I've never grown carrots before, so I'm super excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and use up some of these leaves and throw them in here. Not that I really think they need them because they are deeper in the soil and they are protected from some of the harsh or cold conditions, but a little insulation doesn't hurt. It just gives them a better chance of preserving, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And honestly, that should be it for today. So eh. All right, guys. So happy I was finally able to get this raised bed filled. It's something I've been meaning to do for a little bit now, but with the cold weather approaching, it feels really good to finally have gotten it done. I'm so excited to see how the garlic's going to look come springtime. So stay tuned for that. Really glad I was able to get this little raised bed filled as well. I'm hoping I can get that spinach and lettuce to stretch at least through some of the winter. So we'll see what happens. But that's all I have for you guys. I should have a video coming out next week, just giving you guys an update on my mead and my honey garlic ferment. So stay tuned for that. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.